Hello, my lovelies! This is Jenny from Jenny's Fun Facts. We just want to take a moment to thank you so much, P Eats Meal Preps, for sponsoring our episodes. New menu out every Friday, ordered by Sunday, delivered fresh by Tuesday, and guess what? They deliver to all Montreal surrounding areas as well. Healthy, fresh, and delivered to your door for free. Add them and our podcast on Instagram at p.eats_P as in Peter, R-E-P as in Peter, S. Thanks, P Eats Meal Preps.
Welcome to Noon Hour Out of the Box, episode 35. We are so glad you are here to join us. Your constant love and support is so appreciated. A huge thank you to Jenny DeHame, our producer who makes all this happen. And of course, to my good friend, mentor, and co-host, Mr. Robert D'Alessio. How are you today, Robert?
Esther Brzezinski, my amazing co-host. I am absolutely excited, and that jingle, man, it's so catchy. I got carried away, like I just got drawn right into the show. And Esther, are you as excited as I am? I guess so, because we have, look at what we're wearing. We're wearing some really nice stuff over here, and look at this nice
I know,
mug.
very proud.
We actually,
Noon Hour Out of the Box merchandise.
And
amazing.
You can get that on both sides. Isn't that beautiful, Esther?
I love it. I'm so excited.
Hey, you know, after seeing that intro there, I all of a sudden feel like traveling.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow, I can't wait to dive in and talk all about it. So today we are talking about burnout. And it's interesting because I feel that we are now all going through a sort of universal burnout, having spent almost 2 years of the pandemic, many of those months being isolated indoors. And, we're just fed up and feeling very burnt out. So this is a great topic to talk about. And I also know individuals who have gone through burnout. What about yourself?
Well, actually, Esther, I've gone through a burnout myself. And I remember at one time there were some personal issues going on and I was working a lot. I had my daytime job, which was, I was at a dealership. I owned a dealership. I was selling cars. I was doing about 85 to 90 hours a week. So I would leave that and I would go on to the city bus. And it was just too much at one point. I just had to take some time off. I was off for 2 months. I only wish I had the resources we have today, like with Duncan's amazing retreat over there. That would have been just so awesome.
Wow, isn't that amazing?
But, just letting you know what it entails exactly being on a burnout is that you lose your appetite, you lose your will to live, you become a burden, you have these dark thoughts in your head, and it's just an awful place to be in. And no matter how nice a flower could be, or even the beautiful sunshine or a beautiful sunset, no matter how beautiful that is, when you're in a burnout, you're just nothing is beautiful, nothing is good.
Yeah, so it's a sort of a global apathy of sorts. And this individual who went through the burnout literally used to fall asleep at his desk. Oh, it was just awful. And I don't think people realize how universal a problem it is and what a huge problem it is for people in the workplace as well. So this is really exciting that we are talking about this issue today. So let's get into what is burnout. So burnout is a form of exhaustion caused by constantly feeling swamped. It's a result of excessive and prolonged emotional, physical, and mental stress. In many cases, burnout is related to one's job. Burnout happens when you are overwhelmed emotionally and drained and unable to keep up with life's incessant demands.
Esther, with that background music we've introduced to our show today, I'm feeling just so calm.
Yeah.
I'm just afraid I might end up getting hypnotized over here. You might.
No. You'll be good. You'll be good.
So keep an eye on me, will you?
Absolutely.
So, job burnout is a special type of work related stress. It's a state of physical or emotional exhaustion that also involves a sense of reduced accomplishment and loss of personal identity. Burnout isn't a medical diagnosis. Some experts think that other conditions, such as depression, are behind burnout.
Yeah, that is so very true. And I'm so excited that we have this particular guest this afternoon. So let's do an introduction. So we are having Duncan So as our special guest. He is an expert in workplace well-being and burnout recovery, delivering clinical burnout retreat experiences to help workplace leaders quickly recover from burnout and empower their careers. So Robert, let's bring him on. Yes.
Just before we bring on our guest, Duncan So, we have to pause for station identification.
Whatever you want, Robert.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is today's guest, Mr. Duncan So.
Hello, everyone. Super happy, excited. Oh, I love all the music, all the animation. It makes me just so bubbly getting on here.
Oh, yay. We are so happy.
So, Duncan, welcome to Rob, not the Rob's Inner Circle, because I was Rob's Inner Circle. Noon hour out of the box. We're so happy to have you with us. Thank you for dropping by. Duncan, tell us, you're the executive director of the Burnout Clinic. So you were introduced to us by althealth.me. So remind us exactly what Alt Health is, what it's all about.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this system. So I was invited actually to Alt Health to be a channel leader in their burnout part of their channels. But you can imagine they're a social media platform, so similar to Facebook. And they focus on health, alternative health. So everything from burnout to Lyme disease, struggling with anxiety, all different areas in our mental and emotional areas. And so, I'm championing their burnout part of it, obviously. So they provide a ton of content for people to check out. So if you have a chance, do check out althealth.me for more info.
So we understand that you're involved with Alt Health, obviously, in their burnout channel. But what exactly is a channel?
Yeah, so channels are like verticals, right? So they focus on specific topics. So obviously, in burnout for this channel is for any full spectrum, right? So if you don't know anything about burnout, you're going through burnout, or you're an expert in burnout, it's a really great place to connect with content, connect with experts. And moving sort of into this year, we're going to be introducing a marketplace that will be sharing a lot of new products and services that will help support this specific area.
So Duncan, what is burnout?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I do know there was some verbiage earlier on that you shared. So the World Health Organization calls burnout as a chronic mismanaged workplace stress. So they sort of pin it on the workplace. Now it's kind of weird because burnout is one of those few labels that it's a metaphor, right? So compared to other sort of quote unquote diagnoses, this is one of those few things that we all intuitively get, meaning burnout is something that it feels like the fire inside of us has been extinguished. Now at the clinic, just because we need to be a little bit more specific when it comes to our interventions, we call it as when you expend more energy than you recover as a habit, right? So it's as simple as that. So when we know that, we can start to focus on the habitual behaviors, thinking, emotions, compulsive drives that are really tanking you at the unconscious level, clearing those up from your nervous system, and double downing on having you install things that enrich your energy, right? So when you have a positive net to it, then you're healthy and thriving. When you have a negative net to it, then a high likelihood of you falling into burnout.
Why do you think it's so prevalent now?
So burnout has always been somewhat prevalent. The pandemic definitely amplified it. So before the pandemic, Gallup polls, a really large organization that looks like sort of workplace health, they were already tracking burnout around 40% in 2018-19. And because of the pandemic, and that was primarily stemmed by culture and technology, right? Because technology is always getting us always on. So for those who want to watch a social dilemma and a little bit of a drop on Netflix, social dilemma, It talks about sort of the technology implications of
Yes.
how it's causing all that dopamine in our system to always be go, go, go. To essentially, dopamine is really a big chemical to help us solve problems we don't want to solve, right? And so it's useful, but if you keep hammering on us, it becomes an issue. So now think pandemic, where that's sort of our norm, 40%, and suddenly with a pandemic, we're locked down, we're restricted, our day-to-day regulatory sort of comfort has just been shot off. We're in crisis management, anxiety shoots up the roof in 2020, and then 2021 is, anxiety is becoming the norm. Right now, it's becoming habitual. So we'll talk about sort of the symptomology of the indicators of burnout, but you can imagine 2021 is sort of that time where we're all into fatigue, exhaustion. It's sort of a natural sort of expression of what this pandemic has hit. And now in 2022, if we don't move into recovery quickly, then the next big piece from burnout is the workplace trauma, or the trauma that's going to exist on our mental and emotional health.
So Duncan, how do you know you're burnt out? What are the symptoms?
Yeah, so I like to call it 5 paths, right? So burnout's one of those, and I share this a lot with HR leaders as well, and in the workplaces. A lot of people are leaving the workplace because they say, I'm burned out. Big, broad umbrella, I'm burned out. I'm just going to quit my job for my mental and emotional well-being. But if you really go into the specifics, there's 5 broad categories that we target at the clinic. So the first one is fatigue and exhaustion, right? So most people, when they hear burnout, they associate to fatigue and exhaustion. That's sort of like middle, late game of burnout. The second big piece of it is chronic worry, right? Chronic worry, anxiety, your trauma's in there, the PTSD is in there, right? So you have sort of that bucket that when it comes to a lot of being overworked and burdened, you move into a lot of activity, whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, that eventually will lead us to sort of that first path. The third path is called rampant cynicism. So that's sort of that negative worldview, right? So from an HR lens, we see it as toxic behaviors creating toxic workplaces. But we know through the pandemic is not just in the workplace. There's this work-life blur. So you can imagine we're locked up at home and we're probably more angry or frustrated parents. We're more angry or frustrated spouses, right? Or we're more angry and frustrated children or kids, right? Young adults going through this. So cynicism is a really big part of it, having a negative outlook that's very contagious as well. The next piece is what we call performance efficacy issues, right? So this is when you go in engaged, so you enter the workforce, you're engaged, you're creative, you're productive, and suddenly for some weird reason, it gets tanked, right? That you just, aside from fatigue and exhaustion, you just can't perform at your best anymore. And at its worst, we call it loss of executive function. So just, answering an email or making a decision takes from minutes to hours, right? Just really slowing you down. And obviously, the one, Robert, you mentioned earlier on is what we sort of call the dark night of the soul, right? The identity crisis, right? This was sort of what I went through when I went through, burnout in my earlier years. And that's, who am I? I don't see myself doing this. And you can feel this heavy burden of responsibility, sometimes depression, this internal sadness that is just this huge weight on our soul, really, right? But really a huge weight on our mental and emotional well-being.
So what should people do if they're burnt out?
Yeah, so here's a really important sort of my public service announcement is there's a big difference between prevention. So prevention is what you've been hearing in 2020, right? Self-care, taking time for yourself, journaling, going for walks, petting your dog, right? Spending some time with your family, really setting boundaries around different areas in your life. So that's prevention, meaning is you don't have burnout, but you want to prevent it from happening. But what we're seeing today, 2020 especially, moving to this pandemic, is we have it, right? So it's almost like, I'll use an analogy for this pandemic. It's like the difference between we want to prevent the pandemic, so we take our vaccines, we make sure our immune system is strong, that type of stuff. But when you actually have it, it's very different, right? So what we need to focus on when it comes to burnout is when you have it, there are recovery processes that we got to focus on. And the big one is what we call mental and emotional self-regulation. So you need to have the skills, not just the mindfulness pieces, but how the skills to be able to release the tensions, the suppressed emotions, the compulsive beliefs, the inner conflicts from your nervous system. And that is what we focus on. Our specialty at the Burnout Clinic is around burnout recovery.
Just before we go on to the next question, I just want to mention one of our audience members. I want to wish her a happy birthday. She's a great supporter of Rob's Inner Circle and Noon Hour Out of the Box. I see her all over the place. Lucy Feather, happy birthday. Thank you for joining in. And also a shout out to two other audience members who are very supportive. The first one goes out to Constantine Cortides and also Perry Canestrari. Thank you so much for tuning into our shows and being very supportive as you are. A little toast to you folks. And also Raj Vadavia, a happy birthday to you too today. So cheers to you. Let's move on to the...
We just want to show our cups.
And the t-shirts. There you go.
Yeah.
So let's go on to the next question, and then I'm going to enjoy this nice sip of coffee over here. Tell us about the programs that the Burnt Out Clinic offers, Duncan.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this because last year we just launched a community. So for those who aren't into travel, we have a community where it's a safe space that you come in and we have events, we have chats, we have polls and meditation events, all the things that you look for in well-being. But our signature work, so before everything was locked down, our signature work was actually with our burnout retreats. And what makes it really different is because we use a process called clinical NLP and mental and emotional release that's extremely effective when it comes to releasing suppressed emotions, compulsive behaviors, and thinking and inner conflicts. And so this year we've partnered with the amazing folks at Sunwing Travel. So they own a chain of resorts, one of them being the Royalton Resort. So this year we're going to be having our burnout retreats in April in St. Lucia. July, August will be in Mexico, Hobart, Mexico. And in November, we'll be heading over to Granada to be doing our retreat. So it's a 7-day inclusive. And 2 of those days you go through our recovery process. And the remaining time you can spend enjoying yourself on the island, right? Whether it's all the inclusive food and restaurants or just experiencing the amazing vacation culture that's there.
Duncan, tell us, at which point should someone begin recognizing that, hey, you know what? I may be on a burnout over here. What are the biggest telltale signs that one could start recognizing, saying, hey, you know what? I'm not going in the right direction. Maybe I should go get some help.
Yeah, so I call this a point of no return, right? So one of the things for burnout compared to other challenges, burnout eats willpower for breakfast, right? Eats willpower for lunch. I know we're out of the box at noon, so it eats willpower for lunch. And so when you feel inside you're at the point of no return that I don't even have the energy to learn the skills to self-regulate, I need someone to guide me through it, literally clear those things, that is when you need to seek professional support. So this internal measurement, point of no return. If you're asking yourself, am I nearing that point of no return? If you are, then it's a perfect time to reach out for professional support.
So Duncan, how long have you been doing this? How long have you got this whole thing together?
Yeah, so funny thing is I started this officially in 2018-19 with my wife, doing these retreats. But before that, I spent a decade in a space called human flourishing. So, doing things like, had a school in Ghana that helped empower youth. My wife is an empowerment coach. But before that, she was doing child youth care work, sort of on the social work side of things. And so we've sort of been on the prevention side for a long time, helping people flourish. And what we sort of hit a wall was we recognized that if we don't stop the bleed on the intervention side, then all the great things in the prevention world that we want to do just goes out with the bathwater, right? Putting it that way. And so we launched our clinic to make sure that we've had that taken care of for the general population.
You also created a community. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so our community is called Transcend The Hustle. And so it's sort of umbrella under that mission of, not just how can you transcend burnout, but what does life look like without the hustle? A life that looks with ease and grace and flow, where you can still achieve and be passionate and alive and fulfilled. And one big area that comes behind that is what we call work-life harmony or work-life fulfillment. How do you fulfill yourself, not just in work, but all areas of your life, and sort of pursue that journey of happiness, right? And feel happy inside.
You know, this is the awful moment that we all hate. It just went by so fast. Duncan, what an amazing guest you are. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
Just a reminder that you can listen to the extended version of this show today on accessradio.ca. We're there every Saturday between 12 noon and 3 p.m. Thank you so much, Duncan. Thank you so much, Esther, for an amazing job.
My
and
pleasure.
Thank you for making these amazing items. They're just, you know what? I'm just so excited. I feel like a kid in a candy store.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I love them. Here. They're great.
So thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next week with another interesting show. Thank you, Duncan. Thank you, everyone.
Ciao
Have
for now.
a great afternoon.
Thank you.